Welcome to Check This Out, podcast for kids.
And their grown-ups, where we explore people, places, ponderings, and past moments from history that shape the world around us. My name is Amy Contreras.
And I'm Cece.
Today, we're continuing our series on
Women Who Changed the World.
This week, we have a special episode because we have a new friend and guest joining us on the podcast. Cece's school had a fundraising event where people could pick the topic of the podcast and get to participate in making the episode. This episode was specially made just for our friend, Avie. Cece, should we welcome Avie onto the podcast?
Yeah!
Hi, Avie. We're so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode.
I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 6 years old, and I like to play with my sister. I like to do ice skating. I like to do dance, and I like learning about science. I want to be a doctor when I'm older.
Wow, that's amazing. Why do you want to be a doctor when you're older?
Because it sounds fun, and I want to be a nice person, and I want to help other people.
Well, I'm sure you're going to grow up to be an amazing doctor. And I understand that our topic for today's podcast episode is inspired by your dream to be a doctor when you grow up. Friends who are listening, today's episode is about a woman who changed the world and a trailblazing scientist named Marie Curie.
She sounds very amazing.
Now, Avie, I'm going to need your help with telling the story of Marie Curie. Do you think you can do that?
Yeah.
Nice. Cece will be here with us too, so I get to have lots of helpers with me today as we talk about Marie Curie. Cece, you know the drill. What do you want to tell everyone?
Listeners, keep your ears open.
Because at the end of the episode, we will recap 3 of our favorite facts about Marie Curie that you can continue to research on your own.
See if you can guess what they will be.
I love the spirit, Avie. Now, should we get started learning together about Marie Curie and her accomplishments?
Yes!
Marie Curie was an amazing scientist, and she broke all kinds of barriers and made lots of discoveries. You're going to learn all about those accomplishments in our episode today. But the big thing you should know is she spent her life in a field of science called radiology, and she was the first ever person to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different categories. We'll explain more about both of those things later.
She made a big impact on science.
She did. But before we get into her impact on science and the world, we should know a little bit more about her life before she became a famous scientist. Marie Curie lived a long time ago. She died in 1934, almost 100 years ago.
Wow!
She was born Maria Skłodowska in Warsaw, Poland in 1867. Marie was the youngest of 5 siblings. Avie, do you have any siblings?
Just one, a little sister.
That's way less than 5.
Thank goodness.
Marie's dad was a math and physics teacher. Marie loved learning, and she did well in school. She lost her mom at a young age. When she was 10, her mom died of a disease. So her dad was a big influence in her life. And all the way through high school, Marie was a strong student who did really well in her classes. Avie, what topics do you like in school?
Science and art.
Oh, those are good ones. Who knows, maybe you'll be the next Marie Curie. Marie wasn't the only one of her siblings who loved school. Her sister Brania also really enjoyed learning. But where they lived in Warsaw, Poland, there was a college that the girls had hoped to attend, but they weren't allowed because back then, school was only open to the boys.
What? No fair!
I know, but Marie Curie and her sister Brania didn't give up. They kept figuring out ways to get their education. Marie attended what was called a floating university, which was an unofficial and technically illegal university, but it allowed her to attend classes and keep learning. But she really wanted a real degree from a real university.
That makes sense.
The problem was Marie's family didn't have a lot of money and college was expensive. So Marie and Brania both wanted to go to college. They made a deal with each other. Marie said she would work to support Brania going to college, and after Brania graduated, she would work to support Marie going to college. Marie had to wait 5 years, and she worked as a tutor and a governess to support Brania going to college. But then the time came and she herself got to go to college.
I'm so glad.
Marie Curie attended a college in Paris, France, called the Sorbonne. College was where she stopped going by her birth name of Maria and started going by Marie, which is how we remember her today. She got her master's degree in physics and math. She graduated with her second degree in 1893.
That's a big deal.
You're right, Avie. Marie Curie worked hard and studied a lot to accomplish this achievement. After college, a friend introduced Marie to another scientist named Pierre Curie. Can you guess who this man would eventually become?
Her husband?
You're right. Remember, who we know today as Marie Curie was born Maria Sklodowska. She met her future husband, Pierre Curie, in 1894. Pierre was a really good scientist too, and he ultimately was the love of her life. Pierre Curie is remembered as one of the founders of modern physics, so he was a really good scientist. Marie and Pierre were a great match because they were both brilliant. Marie and Pierre married in 1895, and they would eventually go on to have 2 daughters. Marie and Pierre initially worked on separate projects at the start of their relationship. Marie focused her scientific research on the mysterious uranium rays that had been discovered in early 1896 by another scientist named Henry Becquerel.
Is that important?
It is. This work of her studying Henry Becquerel's work led to her discovery of radioactivity. Marie Curie ran a lot of experiments, confirming previous scientific findings, but she also took the existing research further. Her experiments helped her form a hypothesis, or an idea, that the emission of rays by uranium compounds was an atomic property of the element uranium.
What does that mean?
That is some fancy science speak, for she was able to break down the components of what had previously been considered a mystery. After Marie made these discoveries, her husband Pierre was so intrigued by what she had found, he joined her in her research. Together, the Curies started separating the elements of things they were researching, and this led to the discovery of a new element called polonium.
Check this out.
Do you know what the periodic table of elements is? Have you ever seen a picture of this at your school or in your science class? Marie Curie has 2 contributions to the periodic table of elements. She discovered the elements polonium and radium. Here's an explanation of what the periodic table is from Encyclopedia Britannica. The periodic table is a system for arranging the chemical elements. The chemical elements are the basic substances that make up all matter. Each chemical element has a particular feature called its atomic number. That number comes from the amount of tiny particles called protons in each atom of the element. Today, the periodic table has 118 elements, but new elements are being discovered and added, so the periodic table is never done.
That is why Marie Curie was able to add to it.
Yes, exactly, Avie. In December of 1898, the Curies discovered a second new element that they named radium. To prove to the scientific community that these were new elements, the Curies had to isolate them. It took Marie over 3 years to isolate a teeny tiny amount of pure radium chloride, and she actually never succeeded in isolating polonium.
Were their discoveries important?
Yes, because of the Curie's findings and the findings of other scientists of the time, the use of radioactive materials in medicine started almost immediately. These are way safer than surgery or chemicals for attacking things like cancer and other diseases. So it was a huge breakthrough, not just for science, but specifically in the use of medicine.
I bet the doctors like that.
I do too. And if you grow up to be a doctor, you'll use some of the medicines that are possible as a result of the work of Marie Curie. Pierre also quickly realized the potential for radioactive decay for dating materials. The age of the Earth was determined to be several billion years old thanks to a study of uranium decay, which is directly tied into the work and discoveries of Marie Curie.
Wow!
Keep in mind, during all this amazing scientific work, Marie had her 2 daughters in 1897 and 1904, right in the middle of all this scientific discovery. The results of all of Marie's research was several key things. First, she achieved her doctorate of science in June of 1903. She was awarded the Davy Medal of the Royal Society, which is a high honor. In 1903, Pierre and Marie shared with Becquerel the Nobel Prize for Physics for the discovery of radioactivity. And in 1903, Marie Curie was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. In 1911, she received a second Nobel Prize. This time it was in chemistry in recognition of her work in radioactivity.
That's a very big deal.
It is. Marie Curie's legacy is a direct result of her hard work and incredible scientific achievements. I haven't even told you about the fact that while she was doing all this research and raising her daughters, she was also a professor at a girls' college in Paris and the assistant director of a science lab.
She was a busy lady.
She was. Sadly, in 1906, Marie's world suddenly changed. Pierre was walking in Paris one day and stepped in front of a horse and carriage in the street and was killed instantly.
Oh no, how sad.
After her husband died, she threw herself into her scientific work. Her husband had been a professor as well, and Marie Curie took over his position after his death. She was the first woman to teach at the Sorbonne, which is the college she herself had attended in Paris. World War I happened in 1914, and Marie, along with her oldest daughter Irene, focused on developing X-radiography. Marie Curie developed mobile X-ray vans, which had never existed before the war, and they were critical to medical support and helping soldiers during the war. She also oversaw the development of military radiology centers to help wounded soldiers during the war.
That is incredible.
Yes, her discoveries greatly advanced medicine. After the war, she traveled around the world giving lectures and continuing her research and teaching. In fact, Avie, I think you'll like this, she made a stop at the school your dad went to, the University of Pittsburgh, in 1921. Pitt awarded her an honorary degree, and they even gave her a gram of radium that was worth $100,000 at the time.
Go Pitt!
Marie Curie died in 1934. The cause of her death was the side effects of radiation poisoning.
Here's a fun fact.
In 1995, more than 60 years after her death, Marie Curie's ashes were enshrined in the Pantheon in Paris. She was the first woman to receive this honor for her own achievements. Marie Curie discovered polonium and radium, championed the use of radiation in medicine, fundamentally changed our understanding of radioactivity, which has been fundamental in her impact on science and medicine. And she was the first woman or person to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different categories. So the list is pretty long.
She was a woman who changed the world through science.
You're right, Avie. And we learned a lot about Marie Curie today. But I'm going to re-highlight 3 of our favorite facts in case you want to continue researching more about her on your own. See if you can guess what these 3 facts will be. Fact number 1. Marie Curie is the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. She won in 1903 along with 2 other scientists for their research on radiation. The 1903 Nobel was in the category of physics. Remember, she won a second Nobel Prize in 1911 in chemistry for her isolation of radium. She was and still is the only person, male or female, to be awarded Nobel Prizes in 2 different scientific categories. Fact number 2. Marie Curie invented mobile X-ray vans during World War I to help soldiers. Fact number 3. Marie Curie discovered 2 elements that are now on the periodic table of elements. She named one of the elements she discovered polonium after her home country of Poland. She also discovered the element radium.
What did you learn about Marie Curie?
Now, before we let you go, we always like to wrap up with a rhyme at Check This Out podcast for kids. Avie, will you help me read this week's poem?
Yeah!
Marie Curie, a scientific pioneer.
Her legacy is long and her impact is clear.
From Poland to Paris with dreams to explore, unraveling mysteries,
she opened the door.
Radioactivity, her gift to the world. With radium and polonium, her findings unfurled.
2 Nobel Prizes.
A trailblazing feat. In chemistry and physics,
she couldn't be beat.
A legacy strong, she forged her own way. Inspiring minds like our friend Avie today.
So remember Marie,
Let her story inspire. With hard work and passion,
you can reach higher.
Avie, thank you so much for helping us on this episode of Check This Out. Thanks for choosing such a cool topic like Marie Curie. What was your favorite thing about Marie Curie?
She traveled a lot.
Will you keep listening to Check This Out podcast for kids?
Yeah.
Good. We have more cool episodes coming up on other women who changed the world, as well as our next series on the 7 wonders of the world.
I can't wait to listen.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Check This Out. Here at Check This Out, we know there's a lot of information, and it can be overwhelming to find accurate information online. This podcast is a tool for you to help you do something called citing your sources. As you get older and do projects for school, you'll learn that certain types of websites or information sources aren't verified or have evidence and documentation to back them up. On Check This Out, we use verified sources to build the stories you hear about. Verified sources are materials or information that have been confirmed for accuracy and credibility through an evaluation process. Our sources for this week's episode are nobelprize.org, Encyclopedia Britannica, the BBC, biography.com, redcross.org, aps.org, and the Science History Institute Museum.
Thanks for listening. See you next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.